Come all young sailormen, listen to me. I'll sing you a song of the fish in the sea. Blow, ye winds, westerly, westerly blow. We're bound to the southward, so steady she goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's already at the mic. He's ready. He's a pro. This is the Dean of Fisher Poetry. This is the reason that some of us actually try to write a little better. This is Clem Starck.
Well, thank you, Brad. With an intro like that, I probably should duck out the back door. So, as some of you know anyway, I am not a commercial fisherman. But I went to sea for a number of years. I sailed with the Seafarers International Union, the SIU. And so I've written a lot of poems over the last 65 years, and I've got some nautical poems, so I always pull those out when I come to Fisher Poets. So here's some sea stories, 3 little short poems. This first one is called On a Freighter Leaving Newport. 37 degrees on the inclinometer. Crossing the bar, that old Victory ship rolled so far over on her side. The pilot, a portly man, climbing down a rope ladder to the launch that would take him ashore, looked like a crab scuttling backwards, a tiny figure on a huge teeter-totter. But the ship righted itself. The pilot leaped aboard his launch, and we proceeded south along the coast, 1,000 miles, Yaquina Bay to Port Hueneme to top off our cargo, before heading out again across open waters to the war in Southeast Asia. On a freighter leaving Newport. So I had another opportunity, apart from being a merchant seaman for a while. I had the opportunity to crew on a sailing ship. That was all totally new to me. But this is a story of that adventure. It was indeed an adventure. The name of the ship, and I'm not going to say too much about it because you'll hear that from a description of the ship in the poem itself. But the name of the ship was the Goodwill. The Goodwill. So this little poem is called Saga of the Goodwill. Fore and aft rigged, a 2-masted schooner, overall length 161 feet. Largest fore and aft rigged sailing vessel in the world, we were told, in 1968. A group of us, as part of a lunatic scheme, had made an offer to purchase her. We knew next to nothing about sailing, but planned to make seamanship a kind of spiritual discipline. After a nearly disastrous trial voyage from Honolulu to San Francisco, we had her hauled out for inspection. It turned out that the steel hull was so badly rusted in places, you could almost poke a screwdriver through it. So the deal was off. And 6 months later, when she went down with all hands in a storm off Ensenada, we were not aboard. So here's the third of these three sea stories. Many of you perhaps know of the Canadian singer-songwriter Stan Rogers. One of his most famous songs is the name of a ship, the Genie Sea. The Genie Sea. So that song is quoted a couple of times in this little poem of mine, which is called On the Beach. And I guess I should tell you, in case you don't know, for a seaman, either he or she is at sea, or if they're not at sea, they're on the beach. So here I was actually on the beach, staying at a motel in Newport some years after I had been on the beach. And I wrote this poem, On the Beach. I'll go to sea no more, is what I'm thinking, remembering the words of the song while listening to waves crash on the beach. I'm in a motel on the Oregon coast. It's midnight, full moon, January of my 66th year. The way the song goes, a man, his son, and a hired hand set out for the Grand Banks to fish for cod in a boat built by the man's father. What it was she struck, they never knew. But suddenly, every seam poured water. I've been to sea. I have a son. And you could say my life is a boat built by my father. So this next poem is called Snatch Blocks, Curve Balls. You all know about a curve ball, but in case you don't know what a snatch block is, just think block and tackle. Snatch block is a particular kind of block. Snatch blocks, curve balls. When a worn snatch block in the rigging broke loose, it struck me square in the chest with such force it nearly knocked me overboard. A few inches higher, it would have done damage to my physiognomy. When my wife was diagnosed 4 years ago, it also caught me by surprise. But fortunately, it's not like I'm some rookie just up from the minors who can't handle a major league curveball. All will be well is the mantra I keep repeating. And if not well, then at least over. Like the Russian said, sure, life is tough, but fortunately short. Okay, here's another one. It's called On the Hook in Manila. Riding at anchor in Manila Bay after 10 days at sea, watching the moon rise over the city sparkling below. The four of us, Mike the oiler, Jake, and Crazy Bob and I, a scruffy bunch, are at the rail, midships, waiting for a launch to take us ashore. Although in no way could we be said to resemble the four celestial worthies, much less the equally venerable four perfected lords of wool. The four of us gaze shoreward, half convinced that every bar girl on the waterfront will find us irresistible. Well, here's a story of how I eventually did go to sea. It's called Looking for a Ship. I always wanted to go to sea. Melville and Conrad were two of my heroes. And at 19, cocky, having just dropped out of school, I set out to do it. By greasing the palm of a union official in Mobile, I managed to obtain seaman's papers from the Coast Guard. And I hitchhiked to New Orleans to start looking for a ship. Living was cheap there on Skid Row in 1958. $7 a week for a room not much larger than the bed it contained, a table and chair. For only a quarter, you could get a plate of rice and beans at Fred's Inn, a cup of chicory coffee for a nickel. Fred's Inn was where I learned to differentiate a tramp or a hobo from a bum, and where I met characters I'd only read about in books. It was a long way from the Ivy League. Every day I'd navigate the waterfront, scouting the docks, boarding every ship in sight, trying to hire on. But shipping was slow in the Gulf ports that winter. With so many seamen on the beach looking to ship out, I didn't stand a chance. So after a month or more, I finally gave up, packed my gear, and rode the freight trains west to California to see what would happen there. Not until 10 years later, after a marriage and a divorce, while another war in the Far East was heating up, did I feel again the urge to go to sea. I still had my papers. I knew the protocol. I signed on a freighter out of Long Beach for Japan, and for a couple of years, I was gone. Well, a few newer poems that are not nautical poems, but I'll finish up with these. So, I am not a football fan, but I did play football in high school. So this is a football poem, I guess we can call it. It's called Afternoons Roughing It Up with Sammy Accorso. Going up against Sammy Accorso, afternoons during scrimmage was no picnic. He was a bruiser, first team all-city tackle 2 years in a row. Rugged, pugnacious, built like a tank. His elbows were a pair of sledgehammers. I was out of my element. I had to pretend to be tough. It was the school of hard knocks, far more educational than playing saxophone in the marching band. Thank you. Here's a little short poem. This is a real short poem, so you have to listen carefully or it'll pass you by. This is called Taters. That's taters with an apostrophe S. Possessive, not plural. Taters. Country music and bacon are on the menu at Taters Cafe. as well as a Denver, a Western, or a Florentine omelet. I go there sometimes when I'm feeling low. It's surprising what a 3-egg omelet with hash browns and whole wheat toast will do. So here's a last poem. Again, a little short poem. Seems like as I get older, my poems are getting shorter and shorter. So I've often been asked, or suggested that I write a memoir and autobiography, but I'm a minimalist, so I've condensed it here to another 7-line poem. So this is called In Place of an Autobiography. I decided to drop out of college and went back home to reconnoiter and get my bearings. I got a job as a laborer, working construction. I worked all summer and into the fall for a grub stake. And then I set out on my donkey, prospecting for gold. Thank you all.
The fire burns bright in the farmhouse fireplace. Closing the logbook, you start to sing. Fishing boats are iced in, snow outside calls me. It's a red late afternoon, I hear a church bell.